فائدة, benefit. ذكر العلماء, these scholars. So this doesn't look like a mere mentioning here, if a mentioning is short in English. Uh, Stated that it is obligatory on every accountable person. ذكر العلماء أنه يجب على كل مكلف معرفة الدليل العقلي الإجمالي. The scholars stated that it is obligatory on every accountable person to know the general intellectual evidence على وجود الله تعالى, for the existence of Allah ta'ala. Yes, so uh, first of all, here's the statement here. على وجود الله, intellectual evidence for the existence of Allah. While some scholars, they said a broader statement. He needs to have an evidence for the correctness of his religion. But this one is more exact. Uh, it's obligatory on every accountable person to have the general intellectual evidence for the existence of Allah Ta'ala. كأن يقول الشخص في نفسه. Like for one to say to himself, الكتابة لا بد لها من فاعل. Writing must have a doer. والبناء لا بد له من فاعل. And the structure or the building must have have a doer. والكتابة والبناء جزء من هذا العالم. And the writing and the building are mere parts of this world. فهذا العالم بالأولى لا بد له من خالق. And so this whole world, more so, must have a creator. خلقه, a creator that created it. لا يشبهه, this creator that created it is not resembling it بوجه من الوجوه, in any way whatsoever. I would like to draw attention to the wording here. It says the person would say to himself, the writing has a doer and the building has a doer. Yes, that's fine. As opposed to saying the writing has a writer and the building has a builder and the building has a builder. That one is not better. أو يقول في نفسه, or he would say to himself, يعني this is all the general intellectual evidence. أنا كنت بعد أن لم أكن, I am after I was not. وما كان بعد أن لم يكن لا بد له من مكون. And anything that was after it was not must have one who made it be, must have someone who made it be. فإذا أنا لا بد لي من مكون كونني. Then I must have someone who made me be. I must have a being creator, a being creator who made me be. موجود لا يشبه شيئا, existent and not resembling anything. وهكذا سائر أفراد العالم. And that's the way the whole world is. لا بد لها من مكون كونها. It must have a being creator that made it be. لا يشبهها بحال, not resembling it in any way. Yes, so the Arabic argument here is based on the verb kana. So one is saying kuntu, I was, بعد أن لم أكن, after I was not, وما كان, and anything that was. بعد أن لم يكن, after it was not, لابد له من مكون, must have something that made it be. In English, the verb switches between be, is, was, am. All of that refers to existence. So in Arabic, the root letters are staying, stable. Okay, so this fulfills any person's obligation. أما الدليل العقلي التفصيلي على وجود الله تعالى. As for the detailed or elaborate intellectual evidence for the existence of God, exalted is He. فقد قال علماء أهل السنة. The scholars of the people of the prophetic way said, يجب معرفته وجوبا كفائيا. Knowing this elaborate intellectual evidence is a communal obligation. وذلك مثل أن يقال, and that's like for it to be said, العالم بجميع أجزائه محدث. The world with all of its components is an occurrence, is something that happened. إذ هو أعيان وأعراض, since it is a conglomerate of units and properties. Okay. Inshallah, you are familiar with this. And that's in the Aqidah of An-Nasafi, in the Metin. So this is the elaborate intellectual evidence. We're just getting started here. But I want to draw your attention to that what makes this elaborate is not merely the fact that we're just getting started, and you see how long this goes on here, but even the basic concepts that we are starting with. It says, the world with all of its components is an event. That's a premise. That premise in itself required background knowledge, required thinking. For most of the people. إذ هو أعيان وأعراض, since it is a conglomerate, it is a collection of units and properties. Ayan is plural of ayn. Ayn is an individual, so I'm saying unit. The unit means what we're going to say, something that has independent standing. Independent standing. فالأعيان جمع عين. Ayan, units, is the plural of ayn, unit. وهو ما له قيام بذاته. That is something that stands on its own. It is not existing by extension of something else. It has its own standing. Something else would be existing by extension of it. وهو ما له قيام بذاته. That is something that stands on its own. وَالْعَرَضُ مَا لَا يَقُومُ بِذَاتِهِ. And the property is what does not stand on its own. بَلْ بِغَيْرِهِ, rather, by extension of something else. وَالْأَعْيَانُ لَا تَخْلُو مِنَ الْأَعْرَاضِ. And the units are not devoid of properties. Yes, this is the next step. First, we started with the premise. This premise is what we want to prove. That the world with all of its components is an occurrence. Okay, we want to prove this, and we started. If means since. So we start laying out our facts here. It is made of units and properties. Units have independent standing, properties do not. So that's the whole world. Okay. So what if someone said, okay, oh, how does that prove that the world is created? How does that prove that the world is an event? And notice here we said muhdath, it's an event. We didn't here say makhluk, though that's what it means. Created. But less likely for an atheist to argue with you with the word event or occurrence than the word created. So what if you laid out those facts and he says, so okay, how does that prove that the world is an event? Then we add here, and there could be period here. والأعيان لا تخلو من الأعراض. Now, the units, they are not devoid of properties كالحركة والسكون, like motion and stillness. وهذا أمر ظاهر مدرك بالبديهة. Yeah, so you might say, uh, okay, so what? So what if the units are not devoid of properties? Maybe you will say first, like what? So you say like motion and stillness. كالحركة والسكون. So you might say, well, how do you know that they are not devoid of motion or stillness? وهذا أمر ظاهر. It's obvious. Yani, it's observable. That's very strong evidence. مدرك بالبديهة. And in fact, realized intuitively that something is either moving or still. Some object, some unit is either moving or still. There is no third option. والحركة والسكون حادثان. So if he says, so what? What does that prove? So we add for him, well, motion and stillness are both occurrences themselves. And if you were to say, well, how do you know? We'll say, لأنه بحدوث أحدهما ينعدم الآخر. Because if one of them occurs, the other one vanishes. So also it's observable. فما من ساكن إلا والعقل قاض بجواز حركته. Now what if he said, no, there's some things that only move and there's some things that are only still. So then we'd say, فما من ساكن إلا والعقل قاض بجواز حركته. There is nothing moving but that the mind judges that it is possible for it. There's nothing still but that the mind judges that it is possible for it to move. And there is nothing moving but that the mind judges that it is possible to be still. وما من متحرك إلا والعقل قاض بجواز سكونه. فالطارئ منهما حادث بطريانه والسابق حادث لعدمه. And therefore, whichever one of them happens, we know that's an occurrence because it happened. And whichever was before that, we know that's an occurrence because it went away. And if you were to say, well, how does that prove that they are occurrences? We would say, لأنه لو ثبت قدمه لاستحال عدمه. Because had it been confirmed that these things are eternal, beginningless, it would have been impossible for them to vanish. If they were beginningless, it would have been impossible for them to vanish. فالأعراض حادثة. Therefore, so let's say here, he didn't know what more to say. So he was silent. So he said, فالأعراض حادثة. Therefore, the The properties are events, occurrences. والأعيان حادثة, and also the units are occurrences and events. لأنها ملازمة للأعراض الحادثة, because they are bound to occurring, happening properties. وما لا يخلو عن الحادث حادث, and anything that is not devoid of something happening to it is itself something that happened. Anything that is not clear of something happening to it, it is itself something that happened. لأنه لو لم يكن حادثا, because if he were not something that happened, لكان قبل كل حادث, he would have been existing before anything that happened. لكان قبل كل حادث حوادث, then there would have been, no, let me back that up again. So وما لا يخلو عن الحادث حادث, and anything that's not devoid of something happening to it is itself something that happened. لأنه لو لم يكن حادثا, because had it not been something that happened, لكان قبل كل حادث حوادث لا أول لها, then there would have been before everything that happened happenings with no commencement, happenings that never started. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. Very clear. Yani, for me, it's very clear. Is it clear for you so far? Anyone have a question? Last line again, yes. Let's back up to here. He says, وَالْأَعْيَانُ حَادِثَةٌ لِأَنَّهَا مُلَازِمَةٌ لِلْأَعْرَاضِ الْحَادِثَةِ. The units happened because they are bound to properties that happened. You cannot separate a unit from properties. You cannot have a unit without properties. And we are now proving, we have proved that properties occur. They happen. They come into existence and go out of existence. So, and these units are bound to properties. Someone might say, we only talked about motion and stillness. But then you say, yeah, what you want me to say? Everything, they all have the same judgment. But motion and stillness are the easiest things to demonstrate how they come and go. Okay. That's clear till there? Okay. Then he says, وَمَا لَا يَخْلُو عَنِ الْحَادِثِ حَادِث. And anything that's not devoid of something happening to it is itself something that happened. That's clear? لأنه لو لم يكن حادثا, because had it not been something that happened, had it not been something that happened, then there would have been before everything that happened, there would have been before everything that happened, happenings that have no beginning. Okay. Here, I think, is where you want me to repeat for you. Now, First of all, for myself, there's something before what's written here. In my own mind, there's something before what's written here. And I started to translate it that way. So, let me explain, inshallah. He says, وَمَا لَا يَخْلُو عَنِ الْحَادِثِ حَادِث. Anything that is not devoid of something that happened is itself something that happened, or is not clear of something happening to it, is itself something that happened. لأنه, because لو لم يكن حادثا, because had this thing not been something that happened, لكان قبل كل حادث. Here, this up till here is very clear. Then, had this thing not been something that happened, it would have been existing before everything that happened. That's clear. Had it not been something that happened, but it's existing though, it's existing and it's not something that happened, then it would have been existing before anything that happened. Everything that happened. Is that clear? And the meaning of that is, we are saying, what's correct is the units happened because properties happened to them, such as motion and stillness. These properties, they happen, we observe they're coming and going, and these units cannot escape these properties, so it must be then that these units happen. Because, or else, if you separate that and you say, no, the unit didn't happen, the property happened, but not the unit, it would mean that this unit existed before something that happened. Yes. So if this unit existed before something that happened, then what? Has no beginning? Because whatever exists either has a beginning or has no beginning. There's no third option. So if you confirm an existing one that nothing ever happened to him, then this one has no beginning. Otherwise, anything else that's existent, it happened. And it will have properties that prove that it happened. Now, I think that's clear up till there. So لأنه لو لم يكن حادثا لكان قبل كل حادث حوادث لا أول لها. لو لم يكن حادثا لكان قبل كل حادث, such as motion or stillness, حوادث, things that happen in reality, which would be the unit. The unit in reality is something that happened. But in the claim of the other one, he's saying that this unit did not happen. Its properties happened, but the unit itself didn't happen. Then there would have been, before everything that happened, or anything that happened, there would have been before anything that happened, happenings. There would have been happenings before anything that happened, but with no beginning. In other words, if someone separates the unit from createdness, what's the unit? The unit is what stands on its own. But means here in space, though, what we are implying is something that is existing in space, or filling space rather, filling space. لأنه لو لم يكن حادثا, had it not been something that happened, لكان قبل كل حادث, there would have been before anything that happened or everything that happened, حوادث, things that happened. Because they're saying the unit can be devoid of motion and stillness. By saying that, this leads to حوادث لا أول لها. That means a beginningless chain. Had it not been something that happened, then there would have been a beginningless chain. That's a very simplified translation. So the units are things that happen because they are bound to properties that happen to them. And anything that is not devoid of something that happens to it is itself something that happened. Because had the unit not been something that happened, then I can streamline this and say this would imply a beginningless chain. A beginningless chain. وَهُوَ muhal, and that's impossible. Okay. Firstly, do you have a question here? So it's all clear. Yes, there's something. Either it's my own deficiency or there's something. Uh, something that can fit in there. وهو محال, and that's impossible. A beginningless chain. لأن وجود حوادث لا أول لها يستلزم استحالة وجود الحادث الحاضر. So perhaps that one will start again asking, wait, why would a beginningless chain be impossible? The answer is because the existence of events without a beginning leads to the impossibility of the present event. Confirming beginningless events denies the present event. Is that clear before I explain? Confirming beginningless events denies the present event. Yes. Why? Because you are literally saying it never started. It's that simple. If there was never a first day, then how is there a day now? If there was never a first man, how is there a man now? If someone believes, this is how silly an atheist is, or any person who believes the world is beginningless. If someone believes the world is beginningless, he is literally saying that World War One and World War Two are both the same time from us. Neither one of them is further into the past. Is that clear? If someone believes the world is beginningless, then according to that, neither World War One nor World War Two is further into the past in comparison to us. Is that clear? Yeah, because why? According to them, how many days were before World War One? No number. It's beginningless. And how many days were before World War Two? Also beginningless. So same. Naam, alhamdulillah. لأن وجود حوادث لا أول لها يستلزم استحالة وجود الحادث الحاضر لأن انقضاء ما لا نهاية له محال. Because for something that has no beginning to come to an end is impossible. Yani, how would the second day get a chance to start if the first day has no beginning? ووجود الحادث الحاضر ثابت بالحس. However, the existence of the present event, like today, is confirmed by observation. فبطل القول بوجود حوادث لا أول لها, and therefore The position of infinite regression, what I like to just call beginningless chain, is debunked. وقد قال أهل الحق في إبطال القول بحوادث لا أول لها ما كفى وشفى. And the people of the truth have said in debunking the position of a beginningless chain, what is sufficient and medicinal. فمثل ذلك بملتزم. They gave an example of that by, they gave an example of someone who made a promise. قال لا أعطي فلانا في اليوم الفلاني درهما حتى أعطيه درهما قبله. He said, I will not give Fulan on such and such day a silver coin until I give him one before that. ولا أعطيه درهما قبله حتى أعطيه درهما قبله. And I will not give him a silver coin before that unless I gave him a silver coin before that. وهكذا لا إلى أول, and forever, without a beginning. فمن المعلوم أن إعطاء الدرهم الموعود به في اليوم الفلاني محال. So it is known that the promised silver coin, giving the promised silver coin on that day is impossible. لتوقفه على محال, because it depends on something impossible. وهو فراغ ما لا نهاية له من إعطائه شيئا بعد شيء, which is for something that has no beginning to finish, little by little. ولا ريب أن ادعاء حوادث لا أول لها مطابق لهذا المثال. There is no doubt that the claim of the beginningless chain is applicable to this example. فتبين أن الأعيان حادثة, and so it became conspicuous that the units are events. والأعراض حادثة, and that the properties are events. فالعالم حادث فالعالم حادث له بداية, and so the world is an event. It has a beginning. Okay, I think that's all clear. He says, ثم الحادث محتاج إلى محدث. Now furthermore, an event needs an event creator, فاعل, doer, an actor, بالإرادة والاختيار, one who acts by will and choice, and choice is the will. ولا يصح أن يكون وجود العالم بالصدفة, and it is not valid that the world's existence would be mere coincidence. يعني, it is not valid that the world's existence is random. لأن العقل يحيل وجود شيء ما بدون فاعل. Because the mind deems impossible the existence of anything without a doer. But here, it would be nice to say the existence of anything done, of the existence of anything that occurred. That's what it means, but just to put the word there, يحيل وجود, it says شيء ما, unless also there's a meaning here that uh, escapes me. I know what's intended here, but because it looks like it's just saying to me, the mind deems impossible anything's existence without a doer. Well, Allah exists without a doer. That's not intended here. And what would satisfy me is if there were the word here. This is not Sheikh's words, by the way, as far as I know. This is footnote put by the brothers, by the mashayikh. Is that if there was word there, just like anything occurring without a doer, anything done without a doer, لأنه يلزم على ذلك محال, because for something that happened to not have a doer leads to an impossibility. وهو ترجح وجود الجائز على عدمه بدون مرجح, which would be for a possibility, uh, it would be for the existence of a possibility's existence, that impossibility. So the impossibility would be for a possibility's existence to be weightier than its non-existence without anything to give it weight. Let me say that again. It is impossible, it is not valid that the world exists by coincidence or randomly, because the mind deems impossible that anything that happened would exist without a doer. Because that notion of something that happened existing without a doer necessarily leads to an impossibility. So let's say he says, and what impossibility is that? The answer is the impossibility of something that is itself possible having existence over non-existence without anything to make its existence preponderant. Perhaps he would say, I don't understand. What are you saying? ذلك لأن وجود الممكن وعدمه متساويان عقلا، فلا يترجح أحدهما على مقابله إلا بمرجح. So the answer is, what we are saying is this. If you have a possibility like some body, a body, an object, it could possibly be existing and it could be possibly not existing. Existence is valid for it and non-existence is valid for it. Equally, neither one of those is more valid for a possibility than the other. Supposing he says, how do you figure? I don't get it. So you say to him, okay, take the example of a door. Should a door be more likely open or more likely closed? So let's say he can understand. He says, well, why would it be more likely open or more likely closed? Should neither one of those is more likely. It needs something to make it opened or closed. So you say, exactly, that's what we are saying. A possibility could be existing or non-existing. Like a door could be open or closed. So what's going to make it existing or non-existing? Nothing. Yani, no. Nothing makes its existence weightier than its non-existence. What makes the door open or closed? Nothing makes its being open preponderant over being closed. So there's no way to give weight to either one without another. Is this clear? So we are saying from the top of this paragraph here. Furthermore, the event needs an event creator. An event creator who is a doer, an actor by will and choice, meaning not by mere nature. Why we mentioned will and choice here? We are saying not by mere nature, because maybe that one he would say, yes, yes, this event creator, uh, it, he that's his nature. His nature is to create events. We say no, not nature. He has will and choice, and he is alive, and he does what he wills. It is not valid that the existence of the world is random or coincidence. Yani, that it came into existence by nothing. Because the mind deems that the existence of anything that happens without a doer uh, is impossible. Because for something to happen without a doer to make it happen leads to an impossibility. And that impossibility is for the thing to happen without anything to make it happen. Because why? Why did it not stay non existent? Is the meaning here. Why did it stay non existent? What gave existence preponderance over non existence? Non existence is valid for it. Non existence is as valid for it as existence is. So, why non existence is not what's preponderated for this possibility, and existence is? The mind does not accept that it will not have a preponderator. Is this clear? He says, وَكَذَلِكَ لَا يَصِحُّ أَنْ يَكُونَ الْعَالَمُ خَلَقَ نَفْسَهُ. And also it's not valid that the world created itself. لأن في ذلك جمعا بين متنافيين, because that notion that the world created itself merges two mutually exclusive matters. Yani, it brings together two things that cancel each other out. To say that something created itself, to say that the world created itself, is to bring together two things that cancel each other out. لأنك إذا قلت خلق زيد نفسه, because if you were to say Zayd created himself, فقد جعلته قبل نفسه باعتبار, then you have made him prior to himself from one regard. ومتأخرا عن نفسه باعتبار, and you made him subsequent to himself by another regard. فباعتبار خالقيته جعلته متقدما, by regarding him as a creator of himself, then you made him prior. وباعتبار مخلوقيته جعلته متأخرا, and by regarding his createdness, being created by himself, you made him subsequent. وذلك محال عقلا, and that is impossible intellectually. ولا يصح أن يكون ذلك, subhanallah, when I go over these things and I think about those old Muslims from centuries ago and during the time of the Sahaba and the Tabi'un, and this is so basic knowledge for them. Yani, the Prophet came, he really gave them some potent knowledge. And yani, after a while, they start making machines and inventions and everything, and they conquered everyone. Yani, and they went up into Europe, and they had so much knowledge. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. This is just the beginning here. What we are talking about now, this is the first thing. is so nice, intellectually satisfying. He says, ولا يصح أن يكون ذلك المحدث طبيعة لا اختيار لها, and it's not valid that that event creator would be nature without a will, and without a choice and without a will. ولا إرادة إذ لا يتأتى منها تخصيص الممكن بالوجود بدل العدم, because uh, nature without having will or choice uh, cannot specify possibility with existence instead of nothingness, nor with one time over another time, nor with one quality or attribute over another. Okay, this is just a little bit left here. We'll finish the footnote. ولا بد أن يكون محدث العالم أزليا, and it must be that the event creator of the world is eternal. لأنه لو لم يكن أزليا, because had he not been eternal, للزم حدوثه, then his createdness would have been confirmed, would have been binding, necessary. فيفتقر إلى محدث, and then that event creator would need an event creator. فيلزم الدور أو التسلسل, and then this leads to a beginningless circle or a beginningless chain. وكل منهما محال, both of those are impossible. فالتسلسل هو توقف وجود شيء على شيء قبله. A beginningless chain is a thing's existence depending on something before it. متوقف متوقف على شيء قبله, and that thing depending on something before it. إلى غير نهاية, but with no beginning. Yani with no end into the past. Going into the reverse. Going backwards, there's never a first one. So that's impossible. وهذا محال, this is impossible. كما بينا, as we have clarified. والدور توقف وجود الشيء على ما يتوقف وجوده عليه. And the beginningless circle is the notion that a thing's existence is dependent on something whose existence is dependent on it. وهذا أيضا محال, this is also impossible. لأنه يلزم عليه تقدم الشيء على نفسه باعتبار وتوقف وجوده على سبق وجود غيره المسبوق بوجوده. Because, why that's impossible? Because it's binding from that a thing would be existing before itself by one regard, باعتبار توقف وجوده على سبق وجود غيره. It's confirming, it would confirm that a thing existed before itself by regarding that another thing that depends on it, that its existence is dependent on the existence of something that depends on it itself. Yani, the beginningless circle is impossible because this notion would mean that a thing existed before itself, since what the beginningless circle means is that A made B and B made A. So this would mean A existed before himself because A's existence depends on B's existence. But B's existence depends on A's existence. So then A existed before himself, so that he would create B who created him. So that's all impossible to the mind. باعتبار تأخر وجوده على وجود غيره المتأخر عن وجوده هو عن وجوده هو، فيكون متأخرا عن نفسه بهذا الاعتبار، فثبت أن هذا العالم محدثا، فثبت أن لهذا العالم محدثا أزليا. And so it is confirmed that this world has an event creator, eternal, فاعلا بالإرادة, acting by will, والاختيار, and choice, وهو Allah. And that one is Allah. Allahu A'lam. MashaAllah. So, if you took this in like Jamia or Maha, it's going to come on the test. If we were doing a test, this will for sure come on the test. Any question? How would you study for this? Memorize it verbatim if you can. Then come to the test and write it all out just like that. You'll pass. You'll get 100. You'll get a full mark for that question. Or uh, teach it to someone so it can break apart in your mind and you can put it back together. And that will be easier for you to say it in the test. Or rewrite it. And those are some things to do to solidify the information. The flow, too, is important.